Okay, then let's get it started. My name is Dennis from Ernst & Young, and I'm happy to have this session with you tonight. I'm working in Assurance Digital in Switzerland for Ernst practice. So I help audit to get more digital. Audit is a business that is 100 years old, but not 150 years old. And I'm not an auditor. I actually studied computer science. And with this, I really try to kick audit into the future. We're mainly working on 3 topics. Topic number 1 is the analytics piece. So really bringing analytics on financial processes that are dealing with financial data, but also supply chain processes that impact the client's financial performance. And on the other side, the topic automation. Of course, there's a lot of tick and tie and boring stuff in compliance work where you have to do it for the regulators. You have to write a lot of reports. And so we're also automating this type of work in the department. And on the third side, we working on the topic of collaboration. So you can imagine as an auditor, you have to see lots of people in a company, look on lots of systems, and you have to get connected to them. And the collaboration piece of our work is really connecting us with the customer, connecting their systems with us, working on exchange platforms, but also collaboration like these, having online sessions, setting up Skype, federation, and exchanging files. So these 3 topics the department is working on: analytics, automation, and collaboration. And of course, we're looking for people in between of a business and of the technology. So if you look at what we're doing, our team is comprised out of data scientists, data analysts, software engineers, but also people who studied economics, scientists who studied physics. Is a huge mixture of different skill sets to cater that need. And looking onto the first question, which projects are related to big data and how do we work on this of EY? So all the projects we do is big data. Let's put this buzzword in brackets because we deal with the financial data of customers. So if you look at a customer like Amazon, they deal with billions of sales data. And an auditor like EY has to audit later on one balance sheet the position of sales, which is summarized out of billions of data. So we need to look at these data. That means the sizes we deal with, the volume is highly industry dependent, but it's always huge because we look on a yearly basis. So an audit is always like 1 year, one year-end statement will be audited, and that drives the volume of the data. And if we then think of we comparing this with a time series, for example, on 1 year to another year to another year and have 5 years in, it makes it always very, very huge. So the work you will do at our company with the client data which we're dealing is always big to cater the buzzword. Another aspect of our business is always working with fresh talent. So the questions here related to can you come with a bachelor's degree, master's, can you do your thesis here? Of course you can. We're always looking for young talent to sneak in, to see if this is something for you. Experience yourself. Me as well, I joined EY as a so-called working student. I had no study. During my study, I was working in an internship, and today I'm a partner in Ernst & Young. I have never thought this 10 years back, but that's really the encouraging thing. You can easily start either your undergraduate or with a master's or even as an internship out of interest anytime. Let me scroll quickly through some more questions here. So machine learning. I think let's take another buzz. We had big data, now let's look at machine learning. Yes, we do machine learning. So when we do machine learning, we do it in of data analytics. So we try to predict the behavior of certain financial figures. So for example, the revenue or the cost of goods sold or the inventory turnover, what's the duration of the process? So how long does somebody take from a sales order until he pays by credit card or by cash? So we look at these items to predict where we will be at the end of a year, for example, and that will help us to cater the features as a driver for scoping. So what does it mean? We have features that determine sometimes you get good sales because the weather is good outside. If your business is highly related to snow, like the skiing resorts, then you get more revenue when it's skiing. And if you look at the analysis where we predict that there's a big revenue and then there is no big revenue when we come a month later, let's say from in February, then the features which we use for our analytics can help us to understand why there was no revenue. So these are aspects of models which we build to understand the behavior of the financial data. But we also look at people behavior. So a huge topic is about cash and where the company spends their cash. So basically expenditure. And looking onto expenditure always means that you need to understand what in your model, when you do data analytics and the machine learning, what features drive the expenditure. Somebody takes a flight from A to Z. Was he entitled to take the flight? So is there any reasoning on the sourcing? And if sources come from different countries, why is the price high for the flight or low? And if you put this, for example, in a regression model, let's say you look at let's stay with the sales. You look at the sales of stores. You have 100 stores across the country, and you have stores where the store has 10 employees, the micro store, and the other micro store has 100 employees. So the revenue with the micro store with 100 employees and probably bigger square meter should be higher than the micro store with 10 employees, which is probably in a little village. And if you look at these regression models, for example, and you see a distance measure that is off, so it tells you that this store somewhere in the valley makes a huge amount of revenue, then this feature tells you where to look. So I hope that gives you a little sense into what type of projects we do and how we use machine learning. So which of the divisions work with big data? So at EY, I mean, nearly any division works with big data. And you see that I'm from audit, so I work in assurance. And for many of you, it's probably assurance in Texas of one of the most boring as an impression I usually get. But it's not, because it deals with all the financial data of a company. And so that means that big data in finance is always the closest to EY, because we have ever done that. So the departments of audit and tax, especially in Europe, they're dealing with the biggest amounts of data. How long is the normal workday? That's a really good question. I think there is the cool thing, which I actually like, is that the kind of norm is depending on the project. So it's really diverse. It can be different from each project to each project, but of course we make sure that our people also get rest. So with vitality is very important for me as a department head. So if people work and they start at 8 in the morning, and I make sure that they're not always going later than between 6 and 7, because we need to have them fresh at the next day as well. But I'm honest with you, so there are also long days and days where we sometimes just get the work at the afternoon and we have to finish it by the next day and we get paid for it. So that's a big four firm. That's how consultancy and audit works. So we will have these days out of the norm as well. The most interesting machine learning project I had. Yeah, so I've told you already about the sales which we do with regression models. And the interesting project I had was no real ML project. It was to talk about machine learning with the regulator, so with the government that looks at audit firms, what they do for analytics. And I had an interesting discussion because there was a guy from the government and he asked me, like, why do you use neural net with the neural net, you cannot reperform the analysis. You actually don't know how the net figured out on what sales position you should look. So he was really confronting me and saying, regression, I get it, because there I can recalculate, but the net not. And how do you do with this? So this discussion with the government for me was the most interesting, because I had no answer. The net I cannot reperform. Nobody can actually recalculate how the net came. So the neural net came to the conclusion, whereas the regression model was really easy. Any mathematician can easily recalculate it. So these type of discussions, I think, makes for me an interesting project. The percentage of the tech background, that's a really good question. If you look at my team, it's really, we have 60% tech people, we have 20% economics people, and the rest is really like the back office functions. But that's not a normal split for the whole EY. So you're talking to an assurance digital partner, I'm tasked with digitalizing audit. So if you look at EY as a whole, I think tech background is more on the lower end of the bound. So you would have something between 10 and 20% tech, then the vast majority is economics. But in my team, it's actually upside down. And that shows also where the pyramid in EY, the people pyramid, is going in the future. We will go to multi-skilled, diverse teams from different backgrounds. And it's not just skill set like tech, it's also different countries, because we need to cater also the change on the other side. So at our client sites, and the people we speaking to in the past was mainly finance people, but as we go there with more analytics, we also speak to business warehouse people, business intelligence people as well in the finance department. So this will change and the tech background will increase. And I think that's why we're also doing this webcast here. We need you guys to help down the journey. Our customer base is very broad, and so if you are employed in Switzerland, that doesn't mean that you're not working abroad or you don't get an opportunity to travel. The Swiss customer base, yes, we work for it, to answer the question very straight. But let's look at the Swiss customer. A Swiss customer has, in many cases, no Swiss market. So if you look at, for example, a Nestlé, their tiniest market in the portfolio is Switzerland. Their biggest market is US, and their second biggest, I think, is Asia Pacific or Asia Pac in China. So Swiss customers, we work for them, but when we work for Swiss customers, we work most likely for their international locations, because that's where they have their problems, where they have their challenges. But we also have Swiss, let's say, public service customers where we work for, and they have only a Swiss market. So that's definitely the case, that we work for Swiss customers in Switzerland and for all their national offices as well. That's a very good question. Why didn't you go for a job as a classical computer scientist, like a software developer? I actually, when I joined Ernst & Young, I joined the IT department. So I started off more like classical, but then I figured out that I was interested in ERP. So I was programming analytics, I was programming also functions within systems. And then I figured that many clients of ours use ERP softwares like the big SAPs, the Oracles, and the Dynamics. And I was interested, how can I plug in my software developer skill set to these customizing of these systems? So that's how I actually started. And then I figured out all the customizing is highly business dependent. So all the logics, you program all the methods and the functions, and they always cater complete business use case. And even though if you look at the retailer, or if you look at the diverse industry product, which does produce machines, you go to the next one that produces machines as well, but the system will look completely different. And that actually got my interest in getting closer to the business process. So going a bit more towards business informatics, but still with a really heavy technical skill set. And if you look at my work today, I also, because I'm a certified SAP consultant with a .NET and the ABAP OO background, I still do review of code, because in our pyramid in Ernst & Young, as well the partners like me in tech, somebody has to review the code. So it doesn't mean that you be in the management function and your technical skill set is lost over time. You need to actually stay tuned, because you're the guy usually called in all the pitches and all the discussions with the client. So the classical career is a fantastic start, but there are much more opportunities. But it doesn't necessarily mean that classic is not a good start. We have classical software developers in our department. They have a fantastic career track. And I like that they also stay on their classical track. So it was just mine, but everybody should take where he is feeling the most suited for. And that's what I felt closer to the business process. All right. Yes, we look at blockchain solutions. So blockchain is actually really nice for audit. Many say it actually will make audit obsolete, because it caters all the functions to get trust out of the transactions by the system. That's true. But the ideal world is as follows. Out of a company, if you look at the system landscape of a company, it is very frictioned. And many of the software and architecture design is actually to cater distributed systems. And in the real world, you will not have this monolith which caters everything. There will be a vendor that has a system. There will be a vendor of a vendor that has a system. There will be your own phone that is a system for it. There will be probably your TV at home that is a system where you can purchase something. So today we live in a world of distributed systems. And this is how also the internet was built. And to put this all on a blockchain would be ideal, but that would mean that the billions of people which we have on the planet move at the same time on the blockchain. And I think that is quite, let's say, challenging. I mean, of course, it would be ideal. So we as software developers, we think like that's the perfect solution. It gives us all the trust. I can see who is who, and we can trust each other. We can authenticate. Yes, but not every place in the world is developed the same. Not every business is standardized the same way. Not every interface which you have between one store to another, between one vendor to another, is yet ready to be standard. So let's say the journey to get blockchain on a full scale where audit is obsolete is, I would say, probably 20 years from now. At least I'm confident. And that's one aspect. The other aspect of this blockchain discussion for us in audit is, how do you make sure that you can trust the technology also going forward? So I give you an example. It's like in politics, right? You have the parliament, and the parliament can have a majority, can have a minority, so that can be split in groups. So if everybody says yes to a certain initiative, let's say apply for a job at EY, everybody 100% say yes. And it's fantastic on a blockchain, and you see everybody has said yes. Then some people say no. So you would have a split, like 70 want a job at EY, 30 doesn't want a job at EY. And then somebody says, I don't want a job at EY because EY is too yellow for me. So over time, it develops that more than 50% say EY is too yellow for me. But EY has changed their logo and now is green. But if the 50% decide that green is yellow, then the blockchain can also make green to yellow. And that's a problem in the discussion, that the democracy and the majority can make the things which are correct. So we always forgetting that people are dealing with this system. And if people say orange is a banana, and more than 50% think that orange is a banana, then also this trust is a bit diluted, even though we have the blockchain. So I think there should be parties which looking onto these discussions and also cater the discussion and give it principle. So what is allowed with the wallet, what is not allowed with the wallet, which business should be on a blockchain, because without the blockchain, there's more crime. So there should be also somebody forcing certain businesses to blockchain. And I think in these discussions, how a blockchain can be used, how a blockchain is beneficial for the society, for the people, I think audit firms can play a major role. And this is then probably a bit more out of the technology side, but it's in favor for the technology. So that's how we look at blockchain for audit. Another aspect which is really funny on blockchain for audit, let's say you audit a bank that is communicating with all the customers with a blockchain. By law, if Ernst & Young would get an active node in the blockchain, Ernst & Young would not anymore be independent to do their work and would become a bank, because everybody in the chain has to have a bank license by definition. So the funny situations of the law today is that if Ernst & Young is an active node or even a silent listener node, sometimes the regulations of a country can look at EY and say, now you become a bank because you process as well all the banking transactions from the others on the chain. So these are the questions which are not yet answers, and that's where we're working on to answer them from a legal perspective, but also from a tech perspective, especially when it's about how to trust that system and how to place it into the business, basically, how to apply it. That's what we're discussing. Okay. What skill set does someone need to have to join the team? I think one skill set is really, really important. You have to be eager to always learn something new. I'm just honest with you. Like me, this morning somebody showed me that you can do process mining with Python. So that's a type of analytic which you can do. Before, everybody was of the opinion that you can do this with Celonis, Process Gold, and Prom, and all the tools. And I had no clue that somebody actually has written this for Python. So I had to have a look on the libraries and what was there. So to be eager to learn new stuff in tech is important. But also on the other side, remember, we're doing this for business. Ernst & Young is a professional services firm that works for business, even in audit. We look at processes, we look at industry companies, we look at insurance companies, different type of backgrounds, and we need to understand them. So whenever we go there and we say, please do the analytic on our sales, the same analytic on the sales will look different by market, by industry, by company, by country. Yeah, and that's what is really important. You need to be open for this. On the other side, there's also a skill set which is not to be underestimated. And you see it here in the call as well. We need to have a common base in communication. So of course, proficient English is really important, and proficient English as well in the tech environment, right? So if you cannot describe the subjects and the acronyms and what is used, I think it's very important. On the other side, more languages are also beneficial, because look on the diverseness of Switzerland with the Italian speaking part, the French speaking part, that's really important skill set. And you need to be able to, in our department, if you apply as a techie, you need to be proficient in coding. We will do tests during the interview process. We'll give you a case study, we'll give you a data set, and we don't care so much if you do, let's say, in analytics, you do it with SQL or with Python, or you do it with R, but you need to have these languages which are common in the application in analytics. You need to be proficient in them. Okay. What are the tech stacks that your team use? Good question as well, because I usually call it the zoo of tools. Of course, we deal a lot with, when we talk about analytics, and then I can do an example as well for automation and collaboration. When we talk about analytics, we talk about from really the data capture to the visualization. And of course, we're doing lots of data capture, classical databases like SQL, but we're also using Hadoop, we're using blob storage, so for unstructured data. So that's the vast majority, but we're trying to stick to Azure, so the Microsoft component, just because for the fact we're auditing Amazon, so we're not allowed to take Amazon software. So Azure is really important stack for us in the data field. But if it comes then to the visualizations, we're not bound to just Power BI because it's Microsoft. We also work with our own frameworks. We have .NET Core open source libraries, but we also use D3. So it's really depending on what's best, especially when it comes to the real front end programming. There is no real guidance on the stack. Of course, it needs to be integrated into Azure. So .NET Core is really, really important here. On the other side, we're using also visualization software from stock standard, like the Tableaus of the world, the Spotfire, the ClickView, and the like, but also the in process mining, the Celonis, Process Gold, Prom, and so forth. If you look at the automation side, we're using classical scripting. So for automation, we really use a lot of Python, but also there's still some VBA floating around. And then on many customers, of course, we're using RPA software, so robotic process automation software like Blue Prism and UiPath. These are the biggest vendors we have in the stack. But sometimes it's like, you know, really shooting with big guns on small animals. So we also try to make this easy. And then sometimes if a Python script does it, you don't have to buy like a Blue Prism software to get a Excel spreadsheet copied from left to right. And then on the collaboration side, I mentioned it, we're using a lot of the Skype, so Microsoft components to collaborate, but we're also using on the data exchange side a lot of Azure connectors, so Azure pipelines with the Azure Data Factory. But we're also using specific software for SAP, for example, so SAP data services, because you have to use it, right? If the client has an SAP system or an Oracle system, sometimes they made it on purpose proprietary, so that you can connect. So you're good set if you really have a Microsoft stack or a Java stack. That's always a good basis. So coming back to the question of the classical developer, that's also your start here when it comes to the stack. And of course, modern scripting languages like Python or R or SQL, of course, in the classical means. Yes, so we're coming to the end. We have also some non-techie questions here left. Otherwise, I will be on techie forever. Of course, I love it. But how long did it take to become a partner? That's a very good question. Too long for me, because I always wanted to get successful and get the big money, and like all of you. No, but a typical partner career is really 15 years. So it's a long time, and it's not 15 years you have to do an EY, but to get into a topic, and you know it from yourself as well, how long it takes to get proficient into a topic, and it's here as well. So 15 years, let's say 10 years as well to build your to network only, that you know in a certain market, you know companies, you know the CFOs, the CEOs, and you do this over time out of your project. So if you're not found your own company, then it takes time to get a partner. So I think you're good set with the 15 years. Then would you do audit if yeah, so if you join a team and audit, of course we need to do audit. I mean, if we program a software to automate, let's say the tick and tie of a trial balance, which our people have to do, they have to check if the trial balance of the client which they published is what is in the system. If you need to automate this, then you need to understand what they're doing, how they test a position that is complete, that is accurate. So doing audit, I think is always good. We call this applied R&D. So with an audit team that is actually doing the work, we attend them, we look what they're doing, and then together we're trying to change it for the next time. So, or we pilot, so we have done an application, we take it to the audit team, and then we coach the audit team and do it with them together. So it's always joint. Usually a project is always like 3 types of characters. So it's number 1 is the auditor, like the business side. Then number 2, it's somebody from our team. So it's a data scientist, a data architect, a data analyst. And number 3 is like an IT consultant, so like an ERP consultant or CRM, customer relationship management, because the clients have these systems and you need to know how to get the data out, how to connect the systems. So these 3 at the project make the audit. But you definitely will not be there to do debitor confirmations. I mean, we have our audit teams for this. Yes, there is an international mobility program, like in every big four, Ernst & Young has it as well. Of course, you need to stay a certain amount of years. I think it's 2 years now. Then everybody can also be sent for a year or for 2 years to another entity across the world. And EY UK is an entity, so you can go there. Good. I think we're coming to the end. So let me quickly see if we get the last 2 questions out of here. We have the question. So I said language, but English is a must. German is not a requirement. Of course, I can highly encourage you, if you live in the German-speaking part of Switzerland or you'll be hired here, that over time you get up with German, but it's not an entry requirement. And we also really state this. Our entry requirement on language is English, and be proficient in your programming language. I think that's very important. Yeah, and I think let's close it. It was really fun for me to do this, and I hope to receive all your applications. And I wish you a very nice evening. Thank you very much.